All right, it's time to talk basketball for the first time in the 2024-25 NBA season. Excited to be back with more traditional 13 Worlds NBA Random Thoughts show. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we progress. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thebeachbasket.net. He's Steve Purciello, longtime high school basketball coach, educator, vice principal, and athletic director. And this is the 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts Shot Clock Punch. Undeniably the best 15 minutes of random NBA thoughts online anywhere. Now, during the NBA offseason, we pivoted a little bit. And instead of talking about Steve's random thoughts, we discussed some of the greats in the NBA with someone who watched them play. That be Steve. We discussed Will Chamberlain, Sam Jones, Rick Barry, Pistol P. Maravich, a whole bunch of others. And make sure to find our page to read more about them and hear more about them. It was great talking about the NBA greats. We also had the opportunity to interview some current and past stars of the NBA. I think it's fair to call them. Referee Scott Foster joined us, NBA champions Kevin Greavy and Tom Henderson as well. It's been a phenomenal offseason. But now we're back, right? The NBA season starts this week. So we're back with kind of the traditional show. And we're calling it the Shot Clock Pod. For those who've been listening for a while, we called it a while ago. I like the name. We're back to it. So if this is your first time listening, welcome. If you don't know, this show was born out of the content of Steve's weekly 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts articles. Steve and I are going to have exactly 15 minutes to discuss whatever is on his mind, thus the name Shot Clock Pod. You get it? Today we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article with a focus on what he's seen so far in the NBA preseason. Steve, are you
ready?
Let's do it. I'm going to start the clock. First point, the Denver Nuggets. They won it all in 2023. They have three-time and reigning NBA MVP in Nikola Jokic. But you said that they were a team on the decline. Why?
Money. Yeah, they've decided this year. Last year was Bruce Brown. This year it's Caldwell Pope. Caldwell Pope's a good player.
Yeah.
On both ends of the court. Won 2 championships already. Plays defense, and he always hits the three, and he hits it when the shot clock is down. And Denver's in trouble. They find him, and he bangs a three and keeps everything going. He's gone. He's now in Orlando. Bruce Brown was gone last year. Bruce Brown was a key to sixth man in the championship season. They've lost those two. Their depth isn't real good, and it's starting to wear them down. I don't know how they're going to replace Caldwell Pope. That's going to be difficult. From what I'm hearing, Gordon, they're struggling to sign him. His contract is, I think he's got 2 years, but they're offering him some money or 1 year, but it's not good. What's happened in the NBA is that second apron, nobody wants to go over it. In Denver, who's probably one of the wealthiest owners in the league, Kroenke, he doesn't want to go there. And so they're losing these guys that are keys to their team. They're not going to be as good. And they've got Jokic in his best years. It just makes no sense. Why are you worried about the salary cap and all the other things down the road? But you don't do it now because you have a chance to win a title. And I'm reading also Malone, their coach, he's starting to become disgruntled with the front office. So obviously he wants these players and they're not signing them. And when you start reading that, you start realizing it's a slippery slope and it's a downhill process.
So you don't like Russell Westbrook in, KCP out? Not a fan?
Let's think of it. Who can play defense of the two? Who can shoot a three of the two? That's fairly, yeah. And Russell Westbrook was brought in to play for the second team.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't brought in to start. They have a hole there. They're hoping their kid Brown can become Caldwell Pope. Well, good luck. Just to me, Caldwell Pope is one of the more underrated players in the game. And to lose him is just, it's crazy. And then the money situation. To me, and again, it's not an owner that's scraping nickels. Kroenke's got a lot of money. I believe he owns, out in L.A., he owns the Chargers, is it? Or not the Chargers, but he owns something out there I believe he owns just the arena. He paid for the stadium or something. Yeah. I'm not sure, but, And it's the money. He's got money.
Sad to see the decline of a once great team. We'll see if something can happen in Denver to turn things around. This is still a dangerous team, but hard to argue that they are in a decline. And generally, when you win it all, the only way to go is down, right? Unless you decide to stay up there. Let's talk about another team that hasn't been at the pinnacle for a while. You wrote about the Chicago Bulls, and you said that they were destined to be the dreaded middle of the road team, which is not really where nobody wants to be. You'd rather be really bad or really good, really, quite honestly. But you did call out a silver lining, right, to the Bulls season. So two-part question about the Bulls: what got them here to the middle of the road? What's the way out, is if there is one, and what's that silver lining to them?
The silver lining is the good thing is Lonzo Ball's back.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how long or how well he's going to be because I know he had a lot of, almost like cartilage was put into his leg from some. It's just very complicated. It's experimental. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But it's good to see him back, and he's a good player. People forget that when he got hurt, the Bulls were the talk of the NBA that year. They were really playing well. Unfortunately, they've lost DeRozan. They really didn't pick up anybody in his place. They still have some players. Kobe White's a player, and Vucevic is good. So they still will be okay. And they probably will be a play-in team because the Eastern Conference has got about 7 or 8 good teams, and then after that, it falls off a cliff. Well, they're better than the bad teams in the league. But they're continually being a play-in team every year. Not good because you get a middle draft pick. You're not getting a good pick. You're just not being able to do anything, and you need a couple players to get that going. So they'll continue to be in the middle, and that's just slow man's land. The Bulls, and I'm wondering if the GM Kornishevich, if his hands are being tied where he can't do anything because they did nothing over the summer, except Zach Levine is back. So I'm wondering because you'd be a fool to think you're going to win with that team. So what exactly are they doing? I also think with the situation, in situations like that, who's going to get the blame? The coach.
Always.
Billy Donovan, I would think, better not hope he's not long-term ring because he could have a problem. And he's a great coach. But that's the situation.
I'm in LA. For those who've been a fan of the show for a while, no, Steve is in the East Coast. And here in LA, we had a really bad owner a few decades ago who did not care. I'm not even going to say his name. Did not care about wins or losses. It was really about the bottom line. So he didn't care whether he was middle of the road, if they got lucky and they made a playoff run, which they never did, occasionally, or if they were the worst team in the league. He didn't care. He just was about making the money. But it is, and I don't think, and I'm not saying that's the situation Chicago finds themselves in, but it is tough, right? When you're in the middle of the road, you've got to make the decision to spend money to try to get better, or to just sell all your assets, right? Get rid of them all, to suffer through some really bad seasons to get to be really good. What do you think is keeping Chicago from making one of those decisions?
Jerry Reinsdorf's the owner. In sports, we spend a lot of time analyzing the general manager and a coach and those type things, which is great. And it's fun because it's conversation. But you have to look at the owner on all teams. Jerry Reinsdorf owns them as well as owning the White Sox. The big knock on Reinsdorf is he doesn't want to change an 88-year-old or so. He doesn't want to change. He doesn't believe in analytics. He doesn't believe in a lot of things. You have to wonder if that filters through or what exactly. And the Bulls, outside of the Lakers and the Celtics, that's the biggest name in the NBA. Right. He's not, he really isn't keeping up with it. You wonder if there's, as I said, limits on what the general manager can do, money limits. You don't know, but I look at as more or less the owner, and I always look at ownership to decide winners. And I'm going to use Boston, which is a great subject. But when Boston, with they traded Garnett and Pierce, Paul Pierce was Mr. Self, but they traded him as well as Garnett, Jason Terry too, but what they got back was a draft pick for the Tatum and Jim Really.
Yeah.
Those are picks from that.
Yeah.
So look at what happened and look where Boston's sitting. It took 6 or 7 years, but they're sitting. So I don't know. I don't think the Bulls have anybody of Garnett or Pierce's worth. but you've got to stockpile some draft picks and again to look at. Otherwise, you're going to be in the middle. It's not fun.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think we may be oversimplifying the GM role. I know it's difficult, but Chicago's been there for a long time, and certainly hope that they make a move one way or the other. Moving on, next topic. You called out one player that some are touting as the face of the league. You said pump the brakes on that. You can share who that player is. But who do you think that player will be in the 2024-25 NBA season?
It has to be Jokic until somebody until somebody knocks him off. Well, it's got to be. But Luka, of course, is the darling because he's not 7 foot tall, and everybody has a love for the non-big man. And Luka's an amazing offensive player. So I would think it'll be Luka and Luka. There's nothing negative about. Okay, he doesn't speak much, but there's nothing negative about his behavior. So that makes him more of someone that's beloved by a lot of people. So it has to be after a Jokic, it has to be Luka, which is interesting is they're both not American. And I wonder what the American people think about that.
Yeah. And I think we'll save that topic for another pod altogether. But it is an interesting topic, right? Other guy, go ahead.
Who's your face of the league?
You and I talked about this. I do think Luka, most likely he made it to the finals, right? It's a good team. He's a great player. I think the next big guy, literally and figuratively, is Wemby. Wemby is the bubbling face of the league. I'm seeing him do things, even in preseason, that you just don't see players do. And what has to happen for Wemby, of course, he's got to have that team success. And they're going to be better this season, the Spurs, but they're not going to be great. But over time, again, not an American dude, but the only American that comes to mind is probably Anthony Edwards, right? Who was called out in your article.
You know what? I understand, but you know what? I've watched enough of him. He's not a great shooter. He's good. He makes a lot of things happen. He's exciting. He can defend when he wants to. He's got the makings of it, but he didn't get there. He didn't get there. Last year, they should have, to me, I thought they had more talent than Dallas. I thought Boston would have a tough time with him, more so than I thought against Dallas. But obviously, they didn't come up big. And if you remember, he tried to carry his team, and he didn't in that series. And he did have more talent, and I'll emphasize that.
Yeah,
on his team than the other team, than Dallas.
Let's see how this all sorts itself out. The NBA will start touting somebody. We'll know who it is. The last topic in an article that covered a few more things. Make sure to read Steve's article. You called out, right? No back-to-backs for Joel Embiid. Injury to start the season for Paul George. Load management very likely looming in Philadelphia. What do you think the Sixers' ceiling is then this season?
I think it gets difficult to get to the Eastern Conference Finals because what they're doing is conceding. Let's look at it: the first and second seed to Boston and the Knicks. Now, if you come in third, you're going to either play Boston or the Knicks if you win your first round, and then you're going to play the other one if everything goes all according to form. You got to get through two. That first seed is very important because of that. But without Embiid, they could drop lower. Missing a bunch of games, they could drop lower. And now Paul George is hurt. That's one of my pet peeves is when teams go out and pay a lot of money, like they are for George, who are older, and when you look at it, they miss a lot of games. So you're paying a lot of money for guys that are giving you 60 games. How many games are you going to win? Unless Tyrese Maxey becomes, super Doncic or something like. Yeah. The problem, they're going to lose some. Although they did sign Andre Drummond, who's going to help them, but I don't see it. Don't forget, they came back this year with really two guys. Everything else was gone on the team. Only Maxey and Embiid. Most of those other guys were not back. What they did was buy a new team. How deep could they be? And, because you spent your money on Paul George, him and Embiid and Maxey, that's the salary cap, right? So I don't know how deep they're going to be when these guys are out. They do have Drummond, but who do they have for George? Tobias Harris isn't there anymore. They've got Gordon, but he's a guard and he's a shooter. There's and they did re-sign Kelly Oubre, but there's not a lot there. I don't know. I don't know. People are getting excited about them. I don't. I mean, getting over 30, paying a lot of money. I think it's crazy.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard's a good example.
Yeah, and yeah, I've got thoughts on the Clippers and Kawhi, but I'll save that for an article. But Maxey took a big step as a player, right?
Look,
Last season, it's not unreasonable to think he's going to take another one this season. He's a great player.
he is. But again, okay, let's think about this. Okay, you got Maxey. I can think of if those Embiid and George aren't playing, how good a team are they going to be? How good a team would they be in the season with only Maxey and the rest of their kids? 30 wins?
Yeah.
But how far are they going to go? They lost the playoffs to the two all beat up. Embiid was hurt, but they lost to the Knicks. They had a good shot at beating them when the Knicks people were out for them and couldn't.
Yeah. We'll see. I remember when Embiid started, he talked about the process, right? They're there, right? The process is played out. They're there. Now let's see what kind of career Embiid has in Philadelphia. Man, it's great to talk basketball again. As fun as it was to talk about the greats of the past, it's really fun to talk about basketball now. You may or may not have heard the buzzer, but it did go off. So that's it. Our time is up. Please make sure to read Steve's entire article. We'll link it below to make sure you get all his thoughts on the coming 2024-25 NBA season. And if you found this, we're grateful. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. All of that stuff matters. We will do this weekly throughout all of the 2024-25 NBA season, and look forward to hearing from you. Again, thank you for joining. Thanks for listening. This has been 13 Rules, Random NBA Thoughts, Shot Clock Pod, the best 15 minutes of NBA random thoughts online. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Steve.